15 house guests and one podcast. This is Isolated Splintered, and I'm your host, Poody. Today, we're joined by 5 of our Isolated 4 alumni in this 2-part podcast. We'll be going over the events of Season 4 and hearing from the players themselves what went down. First, we'll sit down with the power duo Michelle and Dallas. Michelle coming in 4th place, also known as Hannah from Stranded in Turks and Caicos, and Dallas, who placed 3rd, also known as Patrick from Stranded in Sri Lanka. In the second half of the podcast, we'll sit down with their opposing alliance, the winner of Isolated Splintered, and most recently coming off of her returning season Stranded for Victory, Loveita, 5th place finisher Tim, who played in 3 seasons of Stranded as Nate, and we'll also be joined by Davonne, the 7th place finisher and resident shade thrower. It's time to finally find out what happened on this often forgotten about but highly competitive season of Isolated, almost a year after it took place.
Okay, whatever. So I was talking about with me trying to get rid of or vote backdoor Tiffany, and I had a whole plan together. Who did I get together? Loveita, Bridget, a bunch of people. And I was just I don't trust her at all. And she has a big thing with Cass, and I'm I don't trust her. And there was going to be a big backdoor plan with her, and then those 2 removals happened, and I was oh man. And then she won HOH, and I was oh fuck, damn it, and I hope that didn't get out.
And then she won veto. And I mean, if you don't know Tiffany, she's played by Jensa, who recently came back for Australian Stranded. When she plays, it's kind of like her way or the highway. And so when Kelsey was not on board with one of her plans, that was her ass. And so this entire HOH was Tiffany just telling people that Kelsey was going to go and no one agreeing to it. So Tiffany wins HOH. Of course, at this point, she's targeted. But she decides to put up Kelsey and Corey. And then Tiffany wins the veto and decides that Corey might go home. So she puts up Bridget, who's liked by everyone, ensuring that Kelsey goes home. But the really funny part was that I think we have to mention the rose ceremony instead of the nomination ceremony.
Yes, the rose ceremony.
Oh no, I thought that was cool. Everyone got so pissed off about that. I mean, I also played along.
Hilarious.
I played along oh yeah, what a disgrace. How dare she take it so flippantly? But I was that was kind of fun. It was weird that everyone got so
it was funny, but she said in the rose ceremony for me when she gave me my rose, it's you are the biggest threat here, but I've got to keep a threat in. I was what the fuck?
Yeah, that was dumb.
Know that I'm a threat. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she was oh, I did that on purpose. And I was okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just that by that point, everyone, the mood was already against her. So I think anything she would have done would have pissed her off more. But the fact she did something so weird and out there made everyone really angry at her.
Yeah, and what a blaze of glory. And I think it fucked Kelsey completely. She achieved her goal, despite making sure she was the biggest target. After that, she got rid of Kelsey.
Which was odd because Kelsey wasn't really on anyone's radar. I don't know why you get rid of someone that.
Yeah, I think Kelsey goes deep in any other situation.
Because me and Meech are both trying to protect her, and then that happens. So. Yeah,
I could definitely see Kelsey in the final 5 with you guys,
Yeah, we would be protecting her and trying to get out Loveita some more.
Loveita could have gone at 7 then if she'd still been around. Yeah. So really, Tiffany screwed up the whole thing.
Which is epic in itself. And a little backstory, you thought, even though Tiffany was originally Stephanie, you thought it was Stephanie this whole time. So you were kind of targeting her under that assumption, or just because of who she was?
Well, I knew, and I pretty much figured out that she was originally Stephanie. Just I had the vibe, and I think the first day I talked to her, she said her favorite season was Heroes versus Villains, and the way she talked, I was oh, this is Stephanie. I can tell. And then when Stephanie changed to Tiffany or to Jensa, I was just okay, now she's even harder to talk to. And now she's even more aggressive.
It's Stephanie times 10. Yeah.
It was okay, I gotta get rid of her. It was mostly okay, I already didn't think that I would play well with Stephanie, and now she's acting like this. I gotta get her out.
And after this round, that's when we do the second half of the Splintered twist, which was we split you guys into pairs of 2, and the last remaining pair would get a special veto, a shattered veto.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But did you guys at this point? Did you guys know who each other were? I remember.
I had suspicions.
No idea.
I remember at one point, Meech, you got drunk, and that's when Patrick figured out who you were.
Yeah, that was much later on. Yeah, at this point, I had no idea.
At this point, I was like kind of suspicious. It's like, okay, this is an Australian. How'd they find him? And he's not really talking about communism right now, but I'm a little apprehensive.
Gonna come up. It's always hard to keep that out.
But then at that point, I mean, you guys ended up being partners, and you will go on to be the last remaining partners with the Shattered Veto.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to ask, why did you run to me so quickly? I was surprised. Like, it was like instant. The post was up, and you had a message saying we should be partners.
It wasn't instant. I was just like talking to Bridget at first, and we both kind of agreed like it would be too obvious if it was the 2 of us, because I think people already saw us as a pair. And Loveita, I really feel like I should have paired with her, to be honest. But I didn't think I don't know. I didn't think she'd be around very long.
Yeah.
Dumb me. And Cassandra, I thought like she was going to be with Tiffany, and that didn't end up happening. And I didn't really want to be with her either, because I think people were not so keen on her at this point, and wasn't going to do Tiffany. And I was like, okay, Dallas is somebody I'm talking to. And because like the only other people that were left were like Glenn, Corey, and whoever else Tim.
Where did Tim slot into all this? Because he ends up becoming maybe the biggest character of the season.
And my worst enemy.
Yeah.
Before me and Meech sort of revealed ourselves at the Alec blind side, it was kind of felt like he was directing the course of the season, when in reality it was me and Meech playing both sides, I think. Starting about here, I reckon, after the Kelsey eviction, I felt like it was we sort of took control more, especially with the veto coming into play. But on the surface, It seemed like Tim was directing the course after he won sort of the battle against Loveita and Bridget and stuff like that. What do you reckon?
I think that's right. I mean, I think you and Meech played both sides well, and you had like your core alliance with, was it with Cassandra? Was that right?
I mean, she was always sort of a side thing for me, but she
kind of later, yeah. But she was on the side.
Tim had always been kind of a loner, and I think at one point he was pretty close with Dallas.
It's me, Tim, and Davonne we were trying to keep our original group together.
At least he was trying to go to you with plans. But I really think he thought he was in a better position. And then once he realized he was out, that's really when we started to see him play a better game.
I mean, he kind of went home straight after. So.
Well, I didn't like that he just didn't talk to me. Like, that was the whole thing. Like, he would refuse to talk to me, and he'd say like, oh, it's just because she's sending spitting videos at me. It's like, no, I wasn't. I did that because you weren't talking to me, and I only sent like 2. I guess I was being a little bit of a brat there, but that was the whole thing.
I'm looking at the chart. It looks like towards round 8, when there were about like 7 or 8 people left. Tim started winning like HOH, then veto. Then he would be nominated against Loveita, and it was kind of those 2 duking it out to see who would be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, he was really like, he would have definitely won had he been in the final.
Interesting.
And I think a lot of that, and a lot of the reason why, do you guys think it had to do with Loveita and Tim being underdogs, or do you think it was like gameplay completely?
Gameplay, I think.
For Loveita as well. I mean, Tim sort of had his hand in a few pies, but I feel like Loveita played the underdog card really well. Like, she waited until she could make the run at the end. She talked to everyone. She was in everyone's good books, but she didn't really have that cutthroat moment that Tim sort of did.
Yeah. I think that Tim is very cutthroat, but I think Loveita's a better player overall. No offense.
Absolutely. She played the role perfectly. Like, Tim couldn't execute as well his role as well as she could, the underdog. Mm-hmm. But I still think, I think it was on purpose as well. Like, she played it on purpose as soon as she realized that she wasn't going to play from the top, and she did it like perfectly.
Right. And I got to witness Loveita, and just the amount of intensity she put into the game. I questioned a lot whether she was like a veteran sneaking in as a new player for whatever reason that's happened
far
before.
out, a new player. Oh my God.
It was crazy because like there were 5 vets and like not slouches either at like challenges or anything. And she was kind of dominating challenges and so much strategy. And it's rare that you find a brand new player who can not only do that well out of the gate, but also up against some of our best. So I was really like, I was IP checking. I was going back to see like how well I actually interviewed her to make sure like this was not somebody sneaking in, you know? Exactly. Because I mean, that's kind of how, I mean, it wasn't far off from that, except for I think Loveita's probably a little bit better socially.
Yeah, a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yes, just a little.
She was so intense. Like Loveita told me that she would take like notes and she would stay up studying stuff and like really got engrossed in the game, like more than any normal person would. But I mean, that's Loveita. She's like all in, you know.
To her, I guess she was.
I was pretty all in. I was pretty crazy about it, but I wasn't doing that. I wasn't staying up all night. I was just like, I mean, I did get a little bit cocky, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of that has to do with like, you know, she's not young. She's not a new gamer. She's like pretty accomplished in what she's doing in life. So I think a lot of that has to do with that.
Psychology, bro. We would never stood a chance.
Exactly. So, I mean, you know, you have to give credit to that. Like she was a serious competitor. So that was fun to watch. And I think too, like your first game's special and you do get involved in a way that you don't in other games. So I think that had a lot to do with it too.
That's
so anyway, where we are, this is when not only did we do the Splintered twist, but this is where Brayden and Alec enter the game, replacing Mitch, RIP, and Natalie, who
Natalie disappeared.
Yeah, I like Natalie, and then gone.
Yeah, Natalie was another one. Like she was good in challenges. She was pretty active, and then just like disappeared, which I guess happens. But so we brought in reinforcements. They ended up going like back to back.
No, yeah, because Bridget went there for a bit, and it looked for a while that Tim was gonna like rule the game with Alec.
Immediately after this, Alec won HOH, and so that was the thing.
So annoying.
And he won that. I was like, oh my God. And then Loveita won the HOH and she nominated Alec and Brayden just because everybody was telling her to. And this was kind of where the whole me versus Tim thing was happening, because I think that the Brayden thing was sort of a blindside for me, because I was like, why are they voting for Brayden? I thought the vote was Alec. Interesting. That's weird. And I was kind of left out. And then Tim and I weren't talking anymore.
And then I think that's really where Tim and Davonne as a pair were kind of like the outsiders trying to form something to go up against you, Dallas, Cassandra. Were really an obvious 3 after that. Like, I don't think it was so obvious, but I think heading into like final 6, it was pretty obvious that you 3 were together.
I had hoped so.
And then like the round after, Dallas won the HOH and he was playing both sides and kind of pretending like he didn't like me and he was really against me, Bridget, and Loveita. And
it was
he put up
crazy
Bridget
plan.
and Loveita, but it was just like, no, I want to get Bridget out.
Was when we did we were going to pretend to hate each other with the veto and like you'd play it at the last second and you know, that whole complicated plot that we came up with that never actually did. That was so much fun. That was probably the funnest round just because there was so much scheming going on and so many different options. And then from then on, it was sort of a linear direction of which way the season would play out.
Yeah, I feel like the first 2 rounds of the game were, I mean, it was a real drag because we had too many inactives. But I think once we had the intruders twist and really like the final 7 on, it was really entertaining. Like some of the best. I would say even probably better than season 3 that everyone says is so much better than season 4. I don't know. I just think like if you're comparing it and you look at the final 7 of this season, it's stacked and each round was super entertaining and unpredictable. And I think, where are we right now? Which round are we talking about?
We're sort of going through a few. Yeah.
So at this stage, it really becomes, I mean, we see Alec, Davonne, Glenn go back to back, which for me was like ideal because it kept all of the serious contenders in towards the end, you know, which made like the final 5 super fun.
We had to get rid of Loveita earlier than we did. This is like she played it really well.
Yeah, before you lost the opportunity.
Just thought we could beat her in challenges, but she hit it well until she didn't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was surprised actually. It surprised me too.
Even
that
just
she
like
was so
luckily, like she'd make a mistake or something, but not absolute clutch.
Yeah, no, she killed it. I mean, I wouldn't have given her odds against Tim either, because at that point it was, whichever one of them survived the other one was gonna go home.
Mm-hmm.
But she did. So let's talk about that let's talk about the final five, because this is where things really get hairy with Tim and Loveita on the block. Meech is HOH. Is there a tie at that vote? What something happens where is that what happened? Yeah, it was 1-1.
Was there a tie? It was me and Cass voting, and no, it was me and Loveita voting against Cass and Tim. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so there was this tie.
And then I did my thing.
You fucking dunked on Tim. Like, I think everyone is like
jury management, very good jury management.
Terrible jury management, but hilarious.
I really shouldn't make excuses for that, because Cass manipulated me, and I was very gullible into thinking like, oh yeah, she's telling the whole truth, because she said that she dunked on him and then I made my thing.
That's right. Bad. She encouraged you to. That was hilarious.
So funny. That's like a Chris Daughtry move.
It was so bad. And I think that's a lot of it. I think a lot of the frustration with you from the lurkers was, number one, that I think we all saw Dallas kind of snowing you a little bit, because as we're going to find out in the following round, he takes you out. But I think, a little bit of that was frustration with you like blindly following him. And then the other half of that was like, you almost went into like a game bot mode.
Yes.
Where like you were really cold towards a good half of the players, which I think set up a jury that was very, I totally expected you and Dallas to be in the final three and for the jury to just shit all over you. I was almost like hoping for that, to be fair, but
you got half of it. So
yeah, you get to deal with them when you joined them. So let's talk about that final four where Loveita wins the HOH, puts up Cassandra Dallas. Dallas wins veto, puts up Michelle, and then Dallas, you take Michelle out.
Deciding vote, and it's a heartbreaker.
Were you expecting that, Michelle?
I was kind of like, I feel like this
50-50
might happen.
on it?
I was like 50-50 and thinking like, I really want to make it to the finals. I really want to state my case. And I know that there were times where I could have talked to people and I didn't. But I hate to make excuses, but I'm really a shy person. And even with these orgs and trying to talk to people, I'm like, oh, I hope I'm not bothering them, because that's just how I am. And I had a good speech already written up before like this. And I felt like, oh my God, this is something I have to delete. It felt like a bad breakup.
Such bad luck. You can't write a speech before you're there. That's awesome.
I know. It felt like a bad breakup, honestly. Like
yeah, I'm gonna be waiting for that mixtape to drop.
It's gone. The draft is gone.
So Dallas, when did you know you would get rid of? Did you go into the final four thinking, okay, if I get the chance, I gotta get rid of her, or was it like a situation that arose and you thought, well, I gotta get rid of her?
Well, at final five, I was even trying to do this thing with Tim and Cass, where if Loveita went, that I'd try and go to the final three with Tim and Cass, because I felt like even then I was like, me and Meech have done the whole thing together. Like, our games are inseparable. You could make the claim that one of us was more dominant on one vote, one of us was more dominant on the other one, but really it's just going to blend together in the eyes of the jury. And so my thought process was just to separate myself from the person who would probably take the most votes from me, and then make my case against the other two who I think I was more involved in. Yeah,
I actually think, like, if you had won, I would have thought it was deserving, especially for this move where you took out Meech, as harsh as it was. I thought it was a good strategy. And I think if it was anyone other than Loveita, you probably would have. Like, I think even if it was Tim and he had won out to the end, you probably could have beaten Tim.
I think I could have beaten Tim.
Yeah, just off that move and the other moves. you and Meech had made together.
Yeah, I was going to lose to Cass anyway, so.
Yeah, I think once you get rid of Meech at the Final Four, you kind of claim ownership of the moves that you and Meech made together, right? Because Meech isn't there. So you get all the credit after that. So I don't hate that move at all. I think it was a good move. I just think like nobody could have beaten Loveita. Really,
it was too late by that point.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like we haven't talked enough about Cass, and she deserves a bit more of a portion about her.
Yeah,
she did good.
She did do good. I thought her, Bridget, and Loveita killed it as new players.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, Loveita was like in a league of her own, but that's not to say Cassandra didn't do equally as well. And at one point, I thought for sure Bridget was going to win the round before she was voted out, you know?
Oh, wow.
But I was like convinced for the longest time Bridget was taking the whole thing.
I'd love to hear that.
Well, let's go back to Cass while we're there.
See, it's weird because she would make you, like, she's fun to talk to. And, like, I feel like that's 90% of this game. If you're fun to talk to, then you'll go pretty far because just people don't want to get rid of you. But also, she just always, you know how some people give off a sketchy vibe? She gave off a sketchy vibe, but you still wanted to keep her around. So yes. I honestly have no reason, like, no understanding of why she stayed around so long when everyone knew what she was doing and talking to everyone and promising the world to everyone. But she did, and it's very impressive.
I feel like she was non-committal, and that's part of why. Like, I think everyone just assumed like they might be able to sway her vote. So,
and she was not in any of the alliances, even the Big Seven to get rid of Tiffany. She wasn't in it, and then she ended up blindsiding Tiffany anyway the next round. Like, and then she's sort of in the middle with everyone, and we weren't sure if she was going to go for the Alec vote. And then sort of at the end, she kind of tied herself to me and Meech. But for a long time, it was like, who are you? Who are you playing with?
Yeah, and it's weird because she was such a big, like I remember her being in contention for a lot of the wins and in a lot of the strategy. So it's not like she was invisible, but she kind of was, you know, like she was
she just had no side, you know? I don't know. Yeah. It was weird. What do you think, Meech?
Yeah, I don't know. She's a sneaky little thing, but really fun to talk to.
Sneaky's a good word to describe her.
I think like in Survivor, she'd do a lot better.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. There's just nowhere to hide really in Big Brother unless you're playing from the top.
Well, especially with this group. I mean, that final seven, there's like absolutely no fat. Once Glenn goes, it's like, I mean, who else do you boot? You know,
fat shaming.
Well, Glenn was kind of.
Glenn was Glenn sort of gave off Cass vibes, except like much less good at it.
Yeah, except not involved enough at all.
Although they correctly called like who was it? Him and Corey were like, Alec, if you don't nominate like some of the big players, you're just gonna go in 2 rounds. And then he's like, I'm not gonna nominate them, and he went in 2 rounds. So they get props for that.
Yeah, I don't know. Davonne and Glenn were kind of in that boat, and at some point, didn't Glenn? It was when that was the round when Glenn and Corey were up together, correct? And they were calling out Alec.
Yeah, that's when Alec came in.
Yeah,
that was dumb. They shouldn't have been going so hard at him. They should have been working because there's no reason that one of me, Meech, or Tim, or like Loveita shouldn't have been up that round. Like it doesn't make any sense. But they just didn't work the social game. Like as soon as the challenge was done, I feel like all of us were in Alec and Braden's DMs, and they obviously were not working as hard as we were.
I also think a big part of your success, especially like compared to Meech's, since y'all were so close on a lot of the votes, I think a lot of it had to do with like your personality in public. You know, like there was a lot of times when you would troll Tiffany or flirt with Kelsey in public. And I think that it really helps people identify and like you more.
It's kind of hard to game body, you know what I mean? But I mean, in messages, Meech was I had the most fun talking to Meech out of everyone. So,
well, I think she played a much better personal game in messages. I do think part of her being viewed coldly was the fact that you were like making jokes all the time in public, and she was like serious 100% of the time in public, like during challenges.
Yeah,
like I was kind of afraid to talk in those big boards. It's like, okay, everybody is going to see that. I'm not going to say anything.
Instead of like it coming across as being shy, it came across as like being disdainful. You know what I mean?
Like, I don't want to talk to these people. I don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. I'm scared to.
you were like unapproachable because I think people were afraid that you were like game bot mode 100% of the time. So it was a little intimidating, I think, to some people, especially because you were winning a lot of the challenges. Dallas was really self-deprecating and personable.
Dally boy.
So, I think that helped him.
Mitch, what's up? We doing this again? Let's go.
We're planning that now.
Cool.
No, in a little while. No, but I think, that proves that like everything is part of the game. That's part of strategy too. I think that benefited you, especially heading into the finals. That made you a bigger standout and it made you more approachable and likable.
Also, I think this game proves like you need jury management, but not just jury management, but like the order in which you put the jury out. Because like the first 3 people that went into the jury were so angry that it sort of like set the tone. And like lots of later people that would go in. Like, I don't know if this is directly related to her or if she had her own opinion, but like Davonne, I was pretty sure she'd be chill, you know what I mean? And then reading through the jury afterwards, it's like, oh my God, I did not realize he was so angry.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. You think like just by virtue of everyone else being pissed off, she kind of joined.
It's once that opinion goes in one direction and everyone's just in the same room just talking to each other and amping each other up, it's so hard to drag back down.
Yeah, no, that's true. But again, I think that also goes back to like the underdog thing, because there is something to that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like had you and Meech been targeted around Final 7 and you guys went back-to-back 1 challenges, I think people would be cheering you guys on, so it could go either way. That's
the problem of being too good at the game. Am I right, Meech?
I know.
Suffering from success.
It's too hard.
That was a fun game.
So hard when you're so good.
So, Meech, do you have regrets about being Dallas's like number 1 ally, or do you wish you should just like cut him earlier before he could cut you? Or
yeah, Meech.
So it was really hard because a lot of people in the game were really threatening, and I knew that, and especially after Kelsey. Okay, I don't know. And I find Glenn incredibly hard to talk to. I find a couple of other people incredibly hard to talk to. I think it would have been hard to be anybody's number 1 or 2 ally. I don't know if I have any regrets. Just I regret having poor jury management, but I don't really regret working with him.
I think because in these games, like if you can find yourself someone to attach like early to mid game, it's so much easier if you can just attach yourself until very far in the late game, because then you don't have to worry about someone and someone's got your back. And I think me and Meech worked so well because she had ears on the ground with like the girls and I had ears on the ground with Tim and Davonne and stuff like that. So, I mean, if this relationship happened, like it was never going to, like once we'd connected, we were pretty much guaranteed, I think, late game at the minimum, just because of how well connected we are with each other's like enemy sort of vibe.
No, I agree with that. And I think, it's a game where a lot of it's built on trust. So if you have someone that 100% you can trust, that's a benefit. That's an advantage over everyone else that might be playing by themselves,
Top tip for all the noobs out there. Just find someone and attach yourself to them. And hopefully you're not the parasite and you're the one directing conversations.
Yeah. So would either of you play an All-Stars?
Yeah.
100%, but it just depends on how busy I am. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's just say on behalf of all the players, Poody, thank you for such a wonderful experience. Lovely design graphics, really cool like voting and tribal count. What are they? Eviction ceremonies. Just what a production. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that means a lot because this season was not our most, it's not our most put together of seasons. It's kind of slapstick. Yeah. I mean, especially with casting. So I felt like we had kind of dropped the ball.
It was a really fun org. It's definitely one of the funnest I've played, and the cast was great and mostly responsible, I think. But of course, the design was really well done as well.
Well, thank you. And I really enjoyed the twists, and I like you guys. And I think one of my favorite twists that was underrated was the Shattered Veto. And I thought it was brilliant how you guys played it off one another. Yeah, you guys got it. I
can't believe you did won it. Oh my God.
I won it. I did so well in that
but you were like, we don't need it. We don't need it. We should throw it.
At one point, weren't you like not going to play it or something? Like, I think
you wanted to throw it because you thought everyone else knew if you had it. And then we read the rules again.
I don't think I said that.
I think you did. So let's go and check the tape.
I don't think I did. I
Poody
don't
got the
think I
table.
did. I think I wanted it.
Revision history.
Oh no, you absolutely did not want it at first. Absolutely. Look at you, liar. This is what the final tribal council would have been like with us too.
Oh my god.
Oh god. It would be like,
A
no,
lie.
I didn't. No, I didn't.
It would have been Meech's Final 5 HOH win, but with all the jurors.
And I'd be like
Just-
crying.
Yeah,
like,
Meech just like ripping into people angrily. Yeah.
Honestly, that would be such a mood though.
You guys all suck.
It would have been ideal, I think. Loveita, you, Dallas, and Meech in the final 3 would have been great.
Me and Meech burning each other to the ground and Loveita gently sailing through to a win.
Yeah.
That would have been hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, same result, but much more entertaining
Sure.
route. To recap how we started, basically all you missed was that Raul, Frank, and Ramsey went.
I won the first HOH.
You won the first HOH and veto.
HOHs.
We've all won 3 HOHs. Come on.
So yeah, we started with the Splintered twist, and then we went in. We started with 4 groups of 4. Michi won HOH, and then veto. Then Dallas, you won the next one, and then after that, we split into teams.
And we started talking about Tiffany, and that kind of won it. We already got that.
Honestly, also I should say that is like the only time where a blindside that big, planned that early, that hasn't come off, has stayed under wraps for that long, I reckon. Like, I can't believe no one leaked it to Tiffany, don't you reckon?
Yeah, I know. It was like, oh my god, it's going to leak.
She was so over the top and so crazy. I could totally believe that no one like you couldn't even approach her. She was terrifying, I think.
And then she like messaged me. She's like, "I thought we were friends." I was like,
Yeah,
"What are you
same.
talking about?"
I was like scared of her, and she was like, oh my god. I remember reading in the jury chat, like, she's boring. It's like, okay, I'm
She
just
was so
scared of
funny.
you.
I don't think you lurked that season, but if you can imagine when she went into Australian Stranded, she was like worse. And she's like bullying people into voting the same shit, except she
Coming
made
to
like
that.
final 8,
Look good on her. That's an improvement.
Yeah, Survivor's definitely her game, where bullying is more tolerated, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can bully much easier in Survivor.
Yeah,
Hard to bully people when only one person has power.
right, exactly. Yeah, I think in Survivor, once someone has the balls to like target people, they generally have a pretty good team around them. Whereas in this, like week to week, that changes.
Mhm.
And up to me and Mitch, though. I don't think often you don't see a power couple make it to final 4. Usually they're split up pretty early on. So well done to us.
That's what I was trying to say. Like, I think Michi you took it hard when you read all of the backlash behind the scenes, but I think, you missed the part where the reason we're so frustrated is because you and Dallas really controlled the season.
Mhm.
It's like it was easy to pick on you guys because you were in control the whole time. So of course, even as a viewer, you're naturally rooting against the power team. But I mean, you guys just killed it.
Listen to the haters, Mitch.
Yeah. I mean, even before teams, you guys were a pair, like even before you were a pair. So kudos to you guys for making it pretty much the whole season, kind of controlling how things went.
Well, thank you, Poody.
Thank
A good
you.
season, good dynamics, good cast. It's very satisfying winner. I mean, what else can you say?
I look forward to the next one.
Yeah. When's that?
Where we get, so I think the next Stranded is mid-January, and I think Nofo's planning the next Isolated for March.
First betting it. There you go.
Yeah, so I've told him like during Stranded, just play an Isolated, and then like once Stranded ends, that's when we'll start casting. So hopefully, like we'll only have a month downtime.
An All Stars, or is it another newbie or like
No,
closed?
I think we're gonna do another newbie season, and then maybe we'll look at an All Star. We're gonna see how many decent people we get.
Absolutely. Cool.
I hope it's like a stacked cast.
Need a stacked cast so that in All Stars we can fly under the radar, Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be a stack cast because this season casting was just me pulling it together last minute. So I mean, it has to be at least better than that.
Yeah, I was like, it's like the day before. I'd like message you 2 weeks before, and you're like, no, it's full. And then like literally the day before, you're like, oh, do you want to play?
So what happened with that? We had a lot of we'd only intended to take like 3 or 4 stranded people and have 12 new people. And I mean, as people started dropping and the time got nearer and nearer, we're like, all right, fuck it. We'll just do it and we'll get vets. And then pretty soon more newbies dropped. We have an active, so we had to get more vets. So pretty much it just became like a half stranded season by the end of it. But
the noobs still did really well. Like 4 or 5 of them were like awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, I think,
And who's still here from those noobs? Loveita's still here. Davonne.
Loveita.
Davonne's still around.
Come on. Shout out to Kelsey. Mwah.
Bridget's
Kelsey,
here.
that's true.
Kelsey's, around.
Yeah, Bridget and Cass are around, but I think that they're busy with like school or something at this point.
I'm still going to go to Ohio and visit both of you, and then you can both shit on me in person.
Yes.
Potato State.
Stranded reunion in Ohio.
No, the corn state, sorry.
I feel like 90% of Stranded lives in Ohio. It's fucking weird.
I figured it out. It was like 6.
But like 6 of the most active people. So
Yeah.
like all the ones that count.
Like Rudy, Gary, me, and Kat.
Loveita's originally from there too, huh? Or no?
My God.
I don't know.
It gets worse.
No, I don't think it's Loveita. Spencer's in Iowa.
Yeah.
If we do have a Stranded meetup, that's definitely where we're going to be. That area.
It's going to be in Ohio. Gross. At the one bar that's open past 6 o'clock.
There's plenty of bars.
We all have corn on the cob together. Yeah, what a fucking great time. Get some candy corn for dessert.
You all need to come to New Orleans where the bars don't close.
Orleans.
All right, so I think that's going to do it for y'all's podcast. I think we'll definitely get together and talk to Loveita at some point. Maybe we'll have you guys come back for that too. But thank you very much for stopping by.
Cool.
You're welcome.
And I'm glad we finally got this in the books for Isolated 4.
Only 6 months off.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.
Hey, communism will win.
28 days, 18 house guests, and 1 podcast. This is Isolated Splintered, and I am your host, Poody. Today we're joined by 2-time All-Star and winner of Isolated 4, Loveita.
Hello.
And 4-time Stranded All-Star and 5th place finisher of Isolated, Nate. Did you say something? Hello? Are you talking, Nate?
Okay, now I think it's working.
You ruined our intro.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't even in the room.
Oh, whoops. I guess I should have waited.
Yeah, so do we do it again?
No, we're good. I'm going to edit in the fumbling around of stuff. We'll mostly be going over the season since Isolated 4 was shafted in the podcast department. This is the Justice for ISO 4 podcast.
Recognition. Yay.
We don't need to get Loveita any more of that.
Well, I know.
My ego has spiked so much in the past 2 guys. I've got
Of course, this is taking place after Stranded for Vic, where Loveita came back and placed 8th. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My memory. Wow. So yeah, we just had a season-long celebration of Loveita. Now we get to talk about the season that she actually won, Isolated. So I guess we should start at the beginning. The beginning was kind of a hot mess for this season. We had started Splintered with 4 groups that, I guess, one group was going to be vulnerable. Is that how it worked? I don't even remember. It's pretty bad.
Basically, there'd be an HOH. Their entire team would be immune. And the other 3 teams would have to vote for 1 member to be nominated.
Yes, that is how it worked.
Yeah, so that only lasted like 2 rounds where we had some inactives go.
And Kelsey.
We had a lot of inactives. I guess we'll talk about that moment. You guys all got to witness Tiffany.
Yeah.
I think one of the great treasures of online gaming graced us with a short but amazing stance in Isolated.
She is definitely somebody that's hard to forget. She made the cover, didn't she?
Yes.
As the first jury member.
Yeah.
Making the cover. That's how much of a dent she put in the season.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, there's like a big group of removed on Isolated. She was basically the second boot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had 4 ejections or removals in our season. So
Yeah, it was just a mass slaughter, and then bringing in reinforcements that were also just quickly ejected. But that being said, I think ISO 4 is going to go down a little unjustly. I think it gets a little marred by the inactives and the fact that nobody was really watching that season. But really, like, all of the top finishers were amazing. And I would think like the end game of that season is probably one of the strongest end games we've had. So we're going to give it a little bit of justification as to why it's a pretty good season.
Basically, everybody. Well, I don't want to say everyone post Glenn was a viable winner that season.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So Loveita, you got to lurk, and of course, Tim, you got to play with Tiffany again in All Stranded, where she was Brooke, and made just as big of an impact on that season. What was it like watching her after having played with her, Loveita?
I felt like I understood her game a lot more afterwards. I mean, because coming into ISO, I had never played an org before, had no idea what they were at all. And then I get this with Tiffany, she came across as this super aggro game body type of character who was super over the top. And this whole time she's telling me, I've got you, you're my number one. And I'm like, I can't trust that. She's like, I don't know anything about her. She's so body. But then I realized that that's actually a game style and it can work really well. And watching her in All Stranded, I really started to understand some more of that over the top strategy type player. That just really, really aggressive gameplay. Because it's something I didn't expect going into Isolated.
And then I'm sure you encountered that a lot in Stranded for Victory.
Yes. I think in Victory, I made a confessional where I talked about Courtney really reminding me of Tiffany's game style. And I was like, okay, this time I should like actually trust Courtney as far as I can. So I had to learn from Tiffany.
Yeah, I think ISO 4 is just a really bad season for that strategy to work, because when did the inactives get purged? Day 7. So that means we all were already talking for about a week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Basically, everyone had gone at least one personal conversation with each other and had some strategic deal at some point by then. The people who were game body, the people who weren't able to form as deep emotional relationships with each other were just quickly more easily identifiable as on the outs.
Yeah, I would think, it was kind of a unique season because like the first week or two even was just dominated by Tiffany and Kelsey's kind of train wreckiness. And then once they left, I guess you'd say like a merge happened, but really it was just the jury started. And from there, we brought in Brayden and Alec, who were each Brayden from ISO 3 and Alec from Stranded in Morocco. And then even then, it was a little bit of like, okay, we'll just get rid of these guys. And what it seemed to have been happening was that it was just like this march towards the end of the actual contenders to win, which I would say would be all of the top 5, which is kind of a unique situation. Usually the contenders to win would be taken out earlier in a Big Brother game, whereas this season we had all of the serious contenders make it very deep.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I think a lot of that was because just how the season was set up and how just we all got to know each other quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Loveita, talk a little bit about your experience, because it was your first org, and there were so few players in the season, I guess, that panned out it was their first time org. I mean, really, we're talking Davonne, Glenn, Bridget, and Cassandra, and yourself, and that's really it. So
yeah, that sounds right.
So half the active cast.
Yeah. I mean, less than half. I think the other half were like experienced gamers who had all played Stranded before, really. Did you have a sense that like some of the people were experienced?
I had no idea at first. And I think even some of the Stranded players got the sense that they should kind of hide that. If anything, Kelsey was the only one touting org experience. And see how that went. I actually I thought I would use that against her in this situation. I was like trying to use it as a reason to vote her out, completely oblivious to the fact that half of the people in the cast were from Stranded. So that was really funny in retrospect to look back on. But I had absolutely no idea going into this that so many people would have that experience. And it kind of wasn't until nearer to the end of the game that I realized, wait, there might be more relationships here and there might be more experience here than anybody really let on.
Yeah, we're actually joined by Davonne, one of our newer players.
This is awkward, but yeah, pretty much. And yeah, the experienced players. I don't really know what to say, to be honest. I mean, you've got Dathers, he made top 3, but he didn't really have that much of an idea of how much of a douchebag he was becoming at the end of the season. So you think he'd be a bit more aware of that. Meech, she, I don't know, I feel like there was this common trend with most of the returning players, apart from Tim, where they'd have really great games, but they'd kind of lack socially sometimes. Like Michelle, she did really well as well, but she was like pretty much named the Ice Queen, because if you were about to go home or you got on the wrong side of her, she would like either refuse to talk to you, or she might as well just called you a bitch in the chat. And that's what she was like with me anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Michelle because there's a pretty epic moment leading up to Tim's eviction that we'll go over.
What's it, the message?
Yeah, I guess we'll just jump right into it. So Michelle wins the final 5 head of household, and really Dallas and Michelle, they were a big force in the game. Mm-hmm. They're really a successful pairing up until the very end. And Michelle wins the final 5 head of household and gets her way. I think she won the veto as well. Is that correct?
I know Loveita won the veto.
I won the veto. Yeah, because otherwise I probably would have been out there.
Yeah,
right.
Or else I would have won the season.
True. And then Meech decides to, I don't know if you had trolled her or what the situation was.
Leading up to it, I decided that my one chance to stay was supposed to really long thing. You do realize this entire day, Cass and Dallas have been trying to get me to vote you out in case Loveita wins veto, which was what they were planning and was 100% correct. And because Meech thought she was the one in the middle of both of them and not the other way around.
Right.
I think she got really angry because it was really public and in front of the jury. And I think she interpreted that as me killing her chances of winning.
Yeah, I just pulled up the whole thing. I'm not going to read it out loud. But the gist of it is that she posted the image of like the participation trophy or some shit. here's your participation award. Thanks for playing. And it just completely goes off on you on your way out the door.
Look, she had to break the tie too because I forced the tie, which she was pissed at me about too.
You were satisfied losing. Can't fucking relate to that. Another thing, I don't get why you're still respecting Dallas despite the fact that I've been with him since the beginning. You obviously have no respect for me. Why do you have respect for him? Does that make you feel like a big, strong man to tear women down? Yike. Basically, if you haven't read this epic copy-paste that Meech had written to Tim on his way out, it's incredible and also like really stupid of her to do. But I'm so thankful that she did it because it was amazing. And then, of course, like in the final 4, there's the awesome moment where Dallas evicts her.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Which was just like the ultimate betrayal. So basically Dallas and Meech had been working together the entire game and really kind of running the show in a big way. Of course, we'll get to like Loveita's epic run and Tim as well. Loveita and Tim trading off safety all the way to the final 5. You know, everyone's expecting Dallas and Meech to get to the end together because they ran the whole show. And Dallas just savagely cuts her at the final 4, taking Cassandra. Yeah, I mean, you can't ask for a better ending to that story, especially after that amazing... What were you thinking, Tim?
The time?
Yeah, like when Meech was the final juror.
At the time, I saw it coming because Loveita won HOH the day before.
Mm-hmm.
So, except if Meech won veto, we basically knew that she was going to be out. Because the whole day before... What I was saying to Meech and like my speech and saying why she should keep me and evict Cassandra was 100% true. Dallas was planning to evict Meech if Loveita won veto the whole time. And when I said it and she did the whole thing, I was like, you know what, this is just going to happen.
Yeah.
You've spoken it to the universe. I don't want to say it made me feel good or anything, but just, yeah, this happened.
Yeah, I think
I was right.
Really, aside from like the veterans that played great games and lacked social awareness, I think some of the best additions to the new players would obviously be Davonne, Loveita.
Thanks.
Cassandra was great, Bridget was great, and Kelsey we have to mention. There's another level.
You can't not mention Kelsey.
Queen.
Yeah. And I think ultimately, you know, even though the season had a slew of inactives and the replacements that we brought in ultimately didn't do a whole lot, I think the core of the players that did show up and played really well. And I think it lent itself to an exciting finish. I would say a strong end game to an uncertain start to a season, you know.
Yeah,
Definitely.
100%.
It was a bit underrating Alec a bit because he definitely was taken out because I think if I play that final 8 round differently, he goes in for the long haul. He definitely came in winning that HOH by a lot and was definitely a big threat to all of us.
I mean, we did evict him after he made that video for us, so that's all right.
Yeah, that's Alex known for doing like intro videos. He's big on editing.
Yeah, you guys insist that he's like 20-something years old, but every time I come to school and I see that meme photo and he's playing Minecraft, I'm like, that kid is such a 14-year-old. No one believes me, but...
I mean, you are the expert.
Wow.
Sorry. You walked into that trap.
Yeah.
So, the final tribal was... the final... what would you call it?
I like
Some
how we skipped
eviction.
the final 5, by the way.
Well, we're kind of just bouncing around. We can talk about the final 5.
Oh, that's what we just did.
Mess. So basically the final 4, we'll talk about the final 5 because we talked about Meech winning head of household, but the lead up to that, I'm pretty sure was you and Loveita kind of trading wins.
Yeah.
And there was the power alliance of Meech, Dallas, and Cassandra that were kind of controlling how things were going. So I guess talk a little bit about that.
Which, yeah, I think when that narrative really begins is on my HOH. At the time, I think I put up Michelle and Loveita because those were the 2 people who I betrayed at the time.
Yeah, that track.
And then it came to the shattered veto shenanigans, where basically my logic going into that round was I'm HOH. I have final 2 deals with Alec, Dallas, Davonne, and Glenn, and they're all going to protect me. Well, one didn't, but they all have some want to protect me. So if I get anyone out of those 3, any of the remaining 3 players out, I'm good for the rest of the game. So that's when, and then Loveita wins veto, obviously, as is common throughout the season.
Yeah, Loveita, you won 4 vetoes. I'm
did.
showing on my chart. And then you won 3 HOHs, so 7 comps total.
Yep, and the last 14 competitions. I did not win a competition until halfway through the season.
Yeah, in the beginning of the season, I don't think anyone really saw you as a threat. Do you think you were playing full on throughout, or do you think there was a point where you definitely had to step it up?
I definitely went in with that whole, that quintessential boring Big Brother strategy under the radar for the first half, and you kick it up at some notch. I didn't intentionally try to throw any of the early competitions. I just wasn't, intense preparing beforehand, practicing or anything like that. Like when it came to the later competitions, I was, tense and shaking the whole time to make sure I tried to win. The first competition I won, that was the HOH, where I nominated Alec and Brayden. I actually spent a really long time. I think it was a non-life challenge. I think we had 24 hours to do it, and I waited until the last couple of hours. I was like, do I want to try on this? Do I not want to try on this? And finally I decided, okay, I'll give it my best shot and see what happens. And then when I won HOH, I was like, shit, now I don't know what to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, the next 2 tribal councils, you get nominated.
Yeah, no, I got betrayed on my own HOH, which gave me the ability then to really fight for myself for the next few rounds because I knew that's all I had left.
Yeah, and then in the meantime, I got betrayed. And then we were forced, okay, we're the 2 people who have to win out from this point on, so we might as well protect each other.
Yeah.
It's weird though, because if on one of my earlier diary room submissions, whatever you want to call them, I'm pretty sure I remember saying Loveita had nobody, or she was doing all right socially, but she would. My assumption was she'd grasp onto anyone that she could. So I always knew. This is so stupid because I literally didn't play barely the same level as game as anyone else, but I kept on seeing her as someone's number because I didn't really. No one really mentioned her. I didn't even know I was in an alliance with her that I think Meech created until 2 weeks after it was made. So there's that. So my perception of her was oh yeah, she's there, but she was never on my threat radar. But when she won the first HOH, I was like, yeah, okay, because she put Brayden up, whatever his name was, that was trying to get me out the same week. So that's when I started standing. And then from there on out, I don't even know when we made our Destiny's Child team thing. That must have been the same week, but
I think it was around 7 because it was when we were trying to get Cassandra to flip.
Yeah.
And take out the keep Dallas and Meech from having immunity in final 6 because of the secret pairs thing.
And what time did like the sides become obvious? Because it was really those three and then the rest of you guys.
Well, I guess it depends when you consider what the sides were.
Yeah,
At the
because Tim,
beginning, it was.
you nominated Loveita.
Yeah, I definitely did at some point. And let's be honest, in hindsight, correct decision. I should have won HOH week 2 and nominated Loveita right there.
Yeah.
Before she figured out how the comps worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like, I mean, well, for me, things became really clear at kind of that final 10, final 9 point.
Yeah.
But that was when everything kind of turned on me. Like, I had been trying to use my HOH to gather information rather than make any sort of like big move. And, well, I got some information because last second everybody flipped the vote on me and I was left with the information that I had nothing. And so for the rest of the game, I really did play that suck up role. I really overemphasized, yes, I'll be a number for you. I went and sucked up to Dallas so much afterwards, which I hated, but I felt like it was what I needed to do to keep me safe if I didn't win a competition.
What was it like playing with Dallas? Because I mean,
oh my god, it's so annoying. Literally, it's so annoying.
Because like
He was all right, but
he's funny, but like the character he's playing is grimy, and he comes across kind of grimy.
Yeah, having Dallas as a rep doesn't help.
yeah, it's kind of like when you get stuck with him, because me, him, Tim, and someone else, probably someone who was inactive, were put on the team twist at the start. So like,
Branding.
and then when I learned he was Australian and Tim was in the UK time zone, that's when we kind of like formed not a trio, but like we were kind of bonded quite well. So like I was still stuck with him, even though I found him really annoying. But I think the person that was most annoying for me anyway was Cassandra, because I always thought she was like a 12-year-old, because every time she spoke to me, she'd either spam me with like individual word messages, or she'd take like 10 hours to respond, and it would always be like one sentence. So there's like a different comparison. I would rather work with Dallas, but looking back and in the Discord server, he's really annoying. So, oh well.
My thing with Dallas was like he does have that sliminess to him, because he's kind of got that thing where he wants to tell you how to play the game.
Yeah.
And so I made sure, like, at that point where he was like, yep, sorry, we played you, ha ha ha. I was like, yes, now teach me how to play, Dallas. Teach me in this game and show me what to do.
Yeah.
It was really that kind of approach I tried to take, because the whole time I was like, okay, he's telling me a lot, but he's not telling me much of anything.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at my stranded history, those are players I like to play with. Like Ozzy, Penner has those tendencies. Because, well, to be fair, I keep on getting betrayed by those people around before I plan on betraying them.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the other half of that alliance, Meech. She's kind of a controversial character. Like, Davonne, you called her the Ice Queen. I think that's pretty accurate, because on one sense, like, she was playing a really good game, but she was so dismissive of people outside of her core group that I think ended up rubbing people the wrong way. Do we think, let's say Loveita goes home at the final 4 and Meech, Dallas, and Cassandra are the final 3. What happens?
Cassandra probably wins.
8-1-0.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know. I might have voted for Dallas in that case.
Yeah, so 7-2-0, because I voted for
yeah.
Dallas.
I'd vote for
So
Cass.
no love for Meech in that situation.
I mean, it depends on what she would have to say at final jury questions,
Yeah.
of course. But
Meech lost Bridges' vote with her goodbye message to me.
Yeah, I remember a lot of the jury being like, that was fucking stupid. I think not even it being mean, and I don't think people care about that. I just think, insulting someone on their way to jury is kind of like, yikes,
Yeah.
Yeah, and my thing with Meech, though, I could never tell what kind of like game relationship we had, even when in the beginning we had like that 4-person alliance, me, Meech, Tim, and Bridget, which was, obviously not the full thing. But, even after that, like, she tried to stay on my good side, keep saying that we were working together, but I could never really tell where I stood with her because of that kind of dismissive attitude. It was really hard to tell, like, are we working together? Are we not? Are you ever going to work with me, or am I just working for you?
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's do an alternate scenario. Let's say Meech, instead of giving that message and dunking on Tim, what if she does that to Dallas? Does that change the jury's perception, or has she just shit away her game socially at that point.
It depends. I think she might get like a TIFF vote or a couple thrown in that way. But I don't think it's enough to win. Because I think Cass's game is really underrated.
Yeah, 100%.
I think if Cass would be the person who I think would most benefit off a second season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love to see Cass play again.
Yeah, Cass was underrated, especially because she kind of disappeared after the season. And I think Bridget, too, is a little underrated.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting. I wonder if it's because, Tim and Loveita were probably people as the underdogs that the jury was rooting for. So I think dunking on Tim on his way out was probably not favorable for the jury. But I wonder if it's someone unlikable like Dallas, if that plays well to a jury,
I mean, yeah, it kind of draws that, you're straddling that line between how could you and yes, queen. Like,
right.
With savage attacks and whatnot, it really depends on if you're hitting up or hitting down. Like, I know Dallas came at me pretty hard in Final Four. I think that was public. And I don't know. I feel like the jury probably didn't see that pretty well either.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the jury all decided by that point.
But he realized he made a huge mistake.
I mean, Cassandra ends up getting 2 votes. Dallas gets 1 vote from Tim. And the rest all go to Loveita. I feel like, though, I think it was just obvious, like, any other scenario other than Loveita being in the finals, you could probably make a case for the other players, but it's like, any other situation, you have to take Loveita out of that final 3, because I think you were winning no matter who was in it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a case where it's me and Loveita, and I win in the right jury.
Maybe. I still think...
But I would have to play a lot of the endgame very different. Like, in a situation where I was the one who took out Dallas at 8, I think I win straight up.
Yeah, if you had taken out Dallas at 8, it'd be a pretty different story all the way down.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have needed to win out probably at that point.
Were you guys working together just out of circumstance, or were you choosing to work together at that point against Meech and Dallas?
I mean, a bit of both.
Yeah, a little column A, a little column B. I mean, Tim had sent me that PowerPoint, which
I forgot about that.
Yeah, no, I loved it so much. The thing is though, I had realized at that point, because I think that was at Final 7, and I knew that Tim and Day were a pair, and Michelle and Dallas were a secret pair. So I knew I had to keep Tim and Davonne in the game. So I was willing to work with them at that point as much as possible. And then Tim sends me the PowerPoint, and I'm like, okay, perfect. I can use this.
Yeah, in terms of like things I regret about this game, because I think when I won HOH, probably I had like a 50-40% winner equity at that point.
Yeah.
And I fucked it up.
Yeah.
One of my biggest regrets is not trying to get you on board before the Alec vote out. Because I think if we were all able to say, these are people who are all protecting you, that's you are much more likely to vote out Cassandra.
Yeah.
Davonne, this was your first game as well, I believe. I think you had played, maybe you had played something else, but...
This was pretty much my first game, pretty much, yeah. I mean, it was all right, because on the first night, I slept through the actual challenge. So when I came back on, I was nominated. And I was pretty sure I was probably going to go home, because at that point, I was like, I didn't realize the challenges were going to be like 2 a.m. It was like, even though it was summer break, I wasn't at college or anything. I was like, I'm definitely not going to end up doing this. But I think it's when I started speaking to Tim and Dallas when I realized, okay, so this cast seems pretty cool and it might actually be quite a fun thing to do. Like before that, I was like, I'm going to end up quitting or something. And yeah, it was a pretty fun experience. But I think one thing what we were speaking about earlier, but we kind of forgot to mention, was you can argue a case for Cassandra, Dallas, Tim, or whoever. But I think one of the main reasons why Loveita wins in pretty much almost every scenario is because she had jury, like people supporting her outside of the game. Like when I was speaking to the other jury people, no one was really vocalizing who they wanted to win until the final 5, final 4. Most of the time, if anyone was suggesting a name, it was me, like just standing Loveita saying, I hope she wins this competition. I hope she goes to the final 3. Whereas like no one had really supported Cassandra or Dallas at any point until the final 3 actually came around. So I just think we all kind of got influenced by each other's opinions. And at the end, everyone just, almost everyone, thought Loveita was going to win anyway. And she was the best candidate because of that. And she was, but that's what I mean.
What would you do differently now, having played other orgs and gotten to see what the experience could be like? What would you do differently?
I mean, there's only so much I can do because I'm rubbish at challenges. Like I've done after my second org, which was another Big Brother one, but it was on Discord, I got recruited by the person who eventually chopped me off in the final three to do a Stranded one, which a few Stranded alumni were spectating. And I was just like, not Stranded, sorry, Survivor. I was just like so out of my element because it was like after swap, I couldn't really help much with the challenges. So every time they got an opportunity to sit someone out, it was like me. So like if I did return to the game, I think I would just have to suck up to a lot of people. But one thing I've learned about myself since Isolated is that I hate biting my tongue. Like if there's a big ego or if there's someone that's really winding me up, I just have like this natural innate tendency to want to shut them up or say something about it. So if I did return to Isolated,
say Dallas.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I did return to Isolated, I would probably have to pay, I mean, to use it as an analogy, I would probably have to play more like a Cassandra, like being under the radar, having a big say on votes, but trying to pretty much getting away with it every other week. But
Yeah.
I think my main mistake was allowing certain people to go so early. For example, Tiffany. Like Tiffany was a big, like really charismatic player. And even though her elimination seems like it wasn't much of a big thing, if Tiffany didn't go on that week and she actually had supporters, I don't think Meech would have gone as far as she did because there was kind of like a rift between them. Because at the start of the game, like maybe 2 weeks in, I remember me and Meech connecting mainly over the fact that she really wanted either, I think it was Cassandra or Tiffany to go. So like Tiffany going is like the other resident Ice Queen kind of boosted her a lot because she was the only one left that people didn't really expect. Well, I can't really explain myself basically. Meech turned out to be...
was a lot more the alliance of the one that Meech was in the middle of, where it was Raiden, Corey, Glenn, I think, on the outs of that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, with the Tiffany vote, I'll agree with you there, Davonne. I think I should have kept Tiffany in longer too. If we both had taken our vote, like it would just would have taken the two of us to switch our votes over, and we would have kept Tiffany because I had been expecting Tiffany and Dallas to really come to a head at some point, and I think that kind of she got taken out earlier than I wanted that blow up to happen.
Yeah, because the Tiffany vote, she had Corey and Glenn wrapped around her finger.
Yeah.
And in that vote, I think even Brayden voted with them against Alec, which was kind of shocking. And it was a 5-3 vote. So it wasn't like it was, it was an obvious landslide against Tiffany. You guys even talk about how it was a little up in the air going into it.
I mean, I just think it was because she was such a big, obvious presence. Like the whole rose ceremony she did when she won head of household, which might have been the week earlier. Like, whilst it might have been iconic to spectate, and I enjoyed it because I was at that time. She was probably faking it, but she wanted to have the final two with me anyway, so I was fine with that. But to other people, it probably rubbed them the wrong way. And I think when you've got
Cassandra the wrong way so hard.
I think when you've got like big egos in the cast, and that's like no detriment into like Meech or Dallas, but like in Isolate, they did kind of have big egos. You can't really go around doing stuff like that. So the reason why I still voted her, even though I was working with her, is that I 100% thought there was no chance that she was not going home. So
I don't know. I think a lot with Dallas is that they didn't really develop those egos till later in the game when they realized they had the power.
I was going to say, because Cassandra was with Meech and Dallas, who, they weren't slouches in the ego department either. It's funny that Tiffany rubbed her the wrong way, but not Dallas.
It was whatever Tiffany said during the rose ceremony.
Yeah.
Cassandra really got rubbed the wrong way by her statement about her or something.
She mentioned having drama.
Yeah.
With her, which I don't think actually happened.
Like that.
Weird. Because them two were like 2-6 in the matchbox or whatever the phrase is. I remember speaking to Tiffany, she was like, I love Cassandra and vice versa. But the second that rose ceremony happened, Jesus Christ, Cassandra was not happy.
Yeah, I think Tiffany was trying to make a public fake fight thing, and instead Cassandra took it literally.
Yeah, because at the time it was Cassandra, me, and Dallas who were kind of in the middle, like the Meech group and the Tiffany group. Right at the whole time they were going to go with the Meech group regardless.
Well, and Kelsey was a number for Dallas.
Wow.
So she was a number for Dallas, and then me as a.
So I know when Tiffany forced everyone to vote out Kelsey, honestly, Queen Tings. I think that's what really drew the line in the sand for a lot of those guys. So really, she took out a number from Dallas and Meech, but mostly from Dallas. So I know everyone was really pissed about having to vote out Kelsey, which is crazy in retrospect, but here we are.
I was not pissed about having to vote out Kelsey.
If you were a male avatar, Kelsey, our interpretation was going to throw the game for us.
Yeah.
I hope to get to the point where we start having women as male avatars, just for that purpose.
That's the next gender divided season. You make a gender divided, but the other way, and no one else knows. They think they're the one person whose gender swapped.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, what else can we talk about from the season? I think overall, consistently entertaining. I think it gets shit on for the amount of returning players, but I still think, like, I don't know, we had like 5 notable new players, so...
Yeah, like, this isn't a jab at Beach or Dallas, but they didn't play like returning players.
Well,
wow.
That is a jab. I don't know. I mean, I think Meech beasted a lot of the competitions, and I think she was pretty dominant in her alliance. I just think socially she really was super arrogant about people who were with her, and like she really ghosted the people who she did not want to work with, which I think is always a mistake in a game like Big Brother.
Yeah, she only sent me like gifts of like people spitting at me.
Well,
yeah, Michelle and Cassandra a little bit would do some of that ghosting. Cassandra was really notable for disappearing like before a vote was due, and then getting back to you like 5 minutes after the vote was revealed and being like, "Oh, sorry, I was busy."
Yeah, that's what happened on my eviction. She was like, "Oh, I'm not voting you, don't worry." And I knew she was, but like 2 minutes before the actual wait, no, because I got sent home on a tie, so 2 minutes before Meech actually chose to evict me. She was like, "Sorry, I wasn't actually going to vote you, but something happened." I was like, thanks for that. But
yeah, I forced Meech to take ties twice.
Yeah, because I think Cass with a better social game is enough to push her to win, even with Loveita there.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess, what else can we say? Loveita, anything in your notes that you've gone over?
I guess this kind of goes back way earlier when you're talking about what it was like having the new players, but what was it like, Tim, like with being like a returning player, but in isolated? Like, did you know how many other stranded players there were, or what was your perception going into it?
Crickets.
Tim hates me. I don't like any.
Tim died.
Oh wow.
What happened to Tim? How did you guys like having the final 3, by the way, for isolated? I got a lot of questions about that in Victory. When people are like, wait, yours was a final 3 instead of a final 2? Isn't that big? Weren't you playing Big Brother?
Yeah, I love the final 3. I think when you get to the very end game, I think having like only 2 people there.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay.
Did you hear any of Loveita's question to you?
I heard all of it, and I was responding the whole time. And the whole time it was going on, I thought you were kidding and you can't hear me.
No.
Whoops.
What were you saying?
But yeah, basically, I'd say as a returnee, to be fair, in my case, I know Dallas basically ID'd early on, but just because my relationship stranded, I did not know any of the other returnees, which I think so I didn't spend a lot of time trying to ID people.
Yeah.
I might have been afraid for a few seconds that like, oh, is Dan like really changed in the last few years when I found out that Dallas was Australian. Well, I just assumed Dallas was someone from Survivor, which I guess was correct.
Well, and I know Meech thought Tiffany was Stephanie. Well, originally Tiffany was Stephanie, but for only like an hour, and then we swapped her with someone else, and she thought it was Stephanie the whole time. And I think that like she kind of unfairly targeted Tiffany in the very beginning because of that. Like she really wanted to beat Stephanie, I guess, at the game, or didn't want to play with Stephanie or whatever. And like the whole time was very obsessed with that. So I think, ID guessing can go either way. I feel like if you're going to do it, I wouldn't base your whole game off of it. I think season to season, people team up with different players and, it should really not be a huge impact on your strategy.
I mean, if anything, I feel like it ends up hurting your strategy in the long run because you're either going to guess wrong and make super dumb decisions because of guessing wrong. Or even if you do have somebody in an alias game, like if Dallas and Meech ID each other, like they obviously work together most of the game, but at the same time that really hurt both of their social games potentially because they weren't like trying as hard to reach out to other people.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, and if you were asking me, I would have thought that Loveita was someone returning.
Oh, I definitely thought Loveita was a returning player once you start winning everything.
Yeah. So you never know. I think IDing people in general is pretty dominant in Alias game because it's so different. Every situation is different with people. You could play a game with the same people over and over, and every time it might be a different outcome with them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially like maybe this is because my games were so far apart. But if you go in between like, Isolated 4 and Faroe Islands, you could put me as both identities and I wouldn't figure it out.
Right.
Yeah, like people play differently across different games as well. I played a different game in Victory. I mean, it was still a lot of the same strengths, but I know that if I were to go off and like play again in like a not all winner season, I'd play a super different strategy just to see if I could.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, to answer your question about the final three,
Yes.
I personally don't think it. I mean, I guess it has an impact, but it's not something I think very seriously on. I just think of in terms of length of the season, you know, and I think a final three allows me to have more players in a season, and that's as far as I go with the strategic thinking. I think if it's like a pairs season, you kind of want a final two, just to see if a pair takes each other or backstabs each other. But I mean, we got that with Dallas and Meech, so
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if it is necessarily a game changer, other than you can make the point that having a final three, it's more likely to have a better player, quote unquote, in the final three than a final two. Because I mean, you know, that's another challenge you would have had to win in order to get into a final two.
Yeah.
And if you did win, you're definitely taking out the stronger of the two other players. So I think a final three is fine. I don't know. What did you think of it?
I liked it.
One less comp to win.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously you liked it.
Well, part of the other reason I liked it too was winning that HOH at Final Four and knowing that that threesome was expecting to just be in the final three together, and me just crushing all of their dreams and making sure that they, you know, betrayed each other somehow. I did like that. That gave me satisfaction.
Well,
yeah, I think when you get towards that very end, there's not a whole lot of game left to be played, you know? Typically,
especially
it's
in Big Brother. Yeah,
it's kind of written in stone. Like, all right, well, if this person wins, they're taking this person, and they're out. You know, so it's a little. There's not much game left at that point. So I don't know that we're missing out on some huge drama.
Yep, the final five of Big Brother is just binary choices after the decision at the final five is
made. Yeah, I mean, it's really
it's like Vanessa Rousseau in BB17 had like the Skittles on a chart that you could just the final four of Big Brother could randomly rolling a dice on that chart and see.
Right. Yeah. So Loveita, you don't deserve that much credit, apparently. That's what Tim is saying.
No. I like the final three too because it gives a lot more like leeway for votes too. You don't know, like there are two other people that you have to take a vote away from and prove that you deserve a vote over rather than just one other person. So there's a lot more complexity, I think, in it.
The speeches. I don't know about you guys. If Dallas listens to this podcast, I don't hate you, but whatever. The actual, I don't know what you'd call them. It's kind of the final tribal council, whatever. But Big Brother, the jury speeches. Loveita's was good, but then like I looked at Dallas's, and I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly, I don't know if this was an answer or it was his opening statement, but I remember half of it being just gifts anyway. So, and like song references. So like, yeah, it was humorous, and I get what he was trying to do, but I feel like a lot of really good players end up losing it because they're like obviously really intelligent and they've made it there because they're a great player. But I feel like Cassandra and Dallas could have had a fighting chance, but then like Loveita came along with her like psychological studies and her like massive essay about her whole gameplay, and like that's pretty much probably why she 100% won. But yeah, they kind of screwed themselves over there as well.
Yeah,
that's all.
You know, a lot of times it depends on the jury too. So a lot of times, you know, I've seen a jury not like how long-winded someone is. I've seen a jury only appreciate the people who went into great detail. I think it's just a personal preference.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the one common thing that people do get is, number one, I think a little bit of ass kissing is important in a speech. And number two, I think having that desire to win, I think can outweigh a lot of other.
Yeah.
You know,
as a 3-time juror. And 3-time did not vote for the correct winner. I think it comes down to a lot of times the jury just picking who. I think maybe because the jury's not sequestered, it's something I think Big Brother and Survivor should definitely do. But the jury is just forced to kind of stick with what the group says, if that makes sense. Especially if you were voted out. Tiffany was voted out 3 weeks before anything happened in the season.
Yeah.
And she was basically, when the whole jury's saying, like, oh, Dallas is shit, so is Cassandra and Meech, you just kind of go on that.
Loveita, you'll be able to tell us a little bit better some of the more winning strategies of final speeches, but I think, in my experience, I think effort and desire to win plays a huge pull in a jury's vote. And also, I think how likable they are.
Yeah,
I stated 100%.
Definitely. It's an interesting, kind of balance where, because you also want that humility factor too, like you were saying, but you don't want to be a huge kiss ass, because if somebody asks you, hey, did you make a mistake in the game by doing this instead of this? Your obvious response should be yes, because obviously you think I made a mistake in doing this instead of that. But at the same time, you're the one in the finals, so it's like, well, was it a mistake? Because I'm here in this final seat, and maybe I wouldn't have been if I had done that. So you have to kind of balance that a little bit, where you have to give them exactly what they want, but turn it around on them to be like, but I made it here anyway, despite making that mistake. So that's why I deserve to win.
I would say it's hard to find the correct answer, but it's easy to spot the wrong answer. Like you can tell when someone totally screwed up an answer.
Oh, for sure.
But it's hard to tell, like, did they slam dunk that answer? I don't know. It's much easier to see the mistakes than the positives.
It also comes down to, I guess, your read of the person you're speaking to specifically, which is probably what matters the most.
And though you do make a really good point with like the desire and kind of like how important is it to you that you get my vote kind of thing. And sometimes that kind of flippant jury speech with all the gifts and all the music, sometimes that can come off as being like I know I should win. It's your own fault if you don't vote me. It's not my fault. And that makes people want. Because
I know, like, my few experiences with being a juror, it does matter. Like, if someone betrayed me, and I've gone into a final 100% not voting for someone because they screwed me over, and then being able to sway me just based on how hard they played, I think that does factor into a juror.
There's like an earnestness you have to give out.
Yeah, especially when it comes to Stranded and Isolated, where, just to break this down, I would need to log onto forums at 11 p.m. I had to sleep by 3 or 4, so that's 4 or 5 hours a day times 24 days. That's 100 hours I easily put into this game. And definitely more in terms of mental energy, thought, like hundreds of hours. I want the person who actually wins the season to be the person who tries the most.
So I have to ask, just to kind of close out this Isolated 4 section, for me, it was kind of, this season was controversial even from the planning stages. I mean, because originally Nofo was supposed to host, and then him and I fell out because of scheduling conflicts, and ultimately people kept asking when it would happen, so I just begrudgingly threw it together. I mean, really, it was kind of thrown together. That's why we had that's why we had so many inactives. We were lucky to get the good newbies that we did find. I have to ask, did you guys sense what was your impression of the season overall, and like, did you sense it was a little underbaked, or did you enjoy the season?
I mean, I had nothing to compare it to, so
pretty much.
I was fascinated the entire time. And obviously I enjoyed the season because I won the season, so it's hard to say I didn't. I had no idea what to expect or what it would be like, so I didn't know how many people normally were lurking. I knew that I didn't think many were lurking this season, so I kind of felt like I was just playing for myself and for my own edification. But I didn't know if that's how it always felt, or if it felt more like you were putting on a show for people, which is a lot more how I felt in Victory.
Pretty much. I mean, that false sense of security about thinking like no one's actually spectating you, for me, was not really there, because Rob had already messaged me like, I don't know, the first week into the competition, basically. I think it was him or someone else threatened to beat me up if I didn't win. Yeah. So that was that. And I feel like it might be a really weird point to pick up on, but this was obviously my first experience apart from like some Survivor Org like years ago, which I didn't try on at all. But I feel like it's, as a younger person anyway, playing this game, I feel like it's kind of not beneficial, but it's more motivating to play with older, more mature players, because like, for example, just talking to Tim and like how he was talking about his personal life and stuff, I actually felt like there was some effort being put into this game. It wasn't just a bunch of teenagers like just getting riled up and taking a piss on like some virtual competition. which was pretty much like the entire of my previous community. So I think that made it a lot more fun, if that makes sense. But yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all the players were like super fascinated. We had never experienced something of that caliber before, so even though it was thrown together, we would never notice.
And Tim, did you notice a difference in your previous outings than this season?
I thought y'all hated Pharaoh. Just to put the three in comparison. I could tell Allies was very good when I was playing it. Just to put the three seasons together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think with Isolated, maybe because I was a lot more tunnel visioned into this season, because the way I applied, I was thinking, you know what? I've just finished my master's degree. I'm going to do this now so I never have to play a game again. And just get the win now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Womp womp.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to any new player listening heading into their season, knowing what you know now?
I guess number one would be willing to put in the effort, as always. Put in the effort when socializing, put in the effort in everything. Like, I think part of why I've gone far in all three of the scenes where I put a lot of effort into.
Yeah.
It's because when you put in effort is when you're able to start bonding with people socially and start to have people pick you over other people. And at the end of the day, that's what this is about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I always say you want to balance, all the social bonds you make and then the game bonds you make within those social bonds. Like, I have a problem where I tend to be a little more passive and let people come to me, which could be a problem, could be a strength.
Yeah.
How you look at it. Where I'll talk socially all day long, but it has to be somebody else who kind of makes that, hey, well, do you want to turn this into an actual like alliance thing? And so maybe being active about that can be a good tip. In the beginning, I think I got a little screwed over because I had all these social connections, but I didn't have any like formal game connections to keep me protected when things went to shit.
Yeah. And well, I can't really give that much advice because I play 7th, but probably don't underestimate people because, like I said earlier about Loveita, I thought she was grasping for numbers and then she pretty much went on to dominate the rest of the competition. And just have fun with it, because I'm not going to say who, but I'm pretty sure I've been told by like 2 to 3 people who said that they were really stressed out, one of them cried during the game. I was just like, I understood obviously because it's like a lot of time commitment, but just don't take it too seriously. Just put the commitment in. And if you lose, you lose. And if you go far, you go far. That's it really.
Yeah, like you always want to try to win, but it's not like you're going to win $500,000 for doing this game or anything.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you want to be able to look back on the game you played and be like, okay, that was a good time. I enjoyed myself. And if you can't say that, then you haven't played the game properly.
Pretty much.
I guess fully invest yourself would be the strategy. Fully invest yourself, but not to the point where your mental health at risk.
Yeah.
I feel like people remember seasons more fondly when they embrace it and go a little further outside of their comfort zone in terms of personality, I think that's when you really get into the game, more so than like just floating along and getting a good placement. You want something to remember after the fact. And I think if you're doing crazy stuff and, it can be what you make it. So, if you're a quiet person in real life, you can be whoever you want to be. In this situation, there's no repercussions outside of being voted off,
Yeah, I played Ice for to win, and it would have been a huge detriment to me had I lost. And so I realized going forward that that's not the approach you should take. You should take it, to test yourself for sure, but also just have a good time doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Strand is one of the very, like if you take all the way back to the person who I was before Pharaoh even. Like I used to be very introverted, I used to be very quiet, I used to not really bond with people, and I guess orgs, and if not, well, this is also, I moved straight up to a new country immediately after. But actually I moved during the Final Four. But yeah, doing Stranded was like a good practice of me of just bonding with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's given me at least so much more knowledge about who I am as a person. Like now the majority of people who meet me IRL would not call me introverted, while like half of people in my high school do not know my name.
Yeah. I mean, I would think it's a lot about like, you don't want to have a regret of, I think a lot of new people come in and they play under the radar and then they think, wow, I'd like to go out and play something over the top. And I think, having the lurkers, having the lurkers and the jury and everyone celebrate those over the top players, I think incentivizes you to see if you could possibly do that. So I would say, you're not going to regret doing that if you do it,
Yeah, like you can play a really solid game where you don't make mistakes. You stay under the radar. You end up winning. You getting to the end and winning, but people are like, or you can be the kind of player that the fans love to see, and it kind of depends on what you're there for.
Yeah. Brennan, I imagine the Meech Dallas version of this podcast is like, be slightly more social, be slightly less over the top.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you guys said, just embrace it. Like, it's a ride. It's hard to explain until you're in the fucking lion's den.
Mm-hmm. It gets overwhelming really quickly. Like, that's definite, sure. And especially people say Stranded's overwhelming when you start with a tribe, but in something like Big Brother, there's no tribes. You can talk to the however many other people are on your cast. And if they are actually all active, that is a lot.
It's scary, yeah.
Early. And so it can be super stressful in that aspect, but it can also be a really good time if you're just in it to start, making connections and learning about people.
That was pretty much what I did. I literally went in saying, apart from Big Brother kind of the 6-month obsession with Paris, I was like, I grew up watching Big Brother UK. I just want to get to know people, blah, blah, blah. And like, I was just coasting, enjoying the game loads until Tim came up to me with one of the final 2 pairs left. I completely forgot that it was even a twist. And when I actually went home, I was like, shit, like my sleep schedule's fucked up. I've got nothing to do at 3 a.m. anymore. So yeah, just enjoy it, but put commitment in, because I feel like the biggest regret you're going to have is taking it for granted. And it's going to be a long time before most of us probably get a chance to return anyway. So yeah, just embrace it.
I think my final tip was, it's always better to like go out trying something than to lose the game having wasted opportunities.
Yeah. Like, this is effectively the third isolated season what people are going to be on. So when's All-Stars? Like 4 or 5. But my big tip is to align with me in isolated All-Stars, where you'll take out Loveita first.
No, I'm not agreeing to that. She can send me home. I don't care. Just send me home week 1. Get me out. Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll close it out. Thank you guys for taking the time out after this much overdue podcast a year later.
Oh God, it's been a year.
No, not quite.
Not quite.
Is it October? It'll be a year. It's still too long.
Well, October. I thought it would be a year in August or July.
Yeah, according to my Excel sheet, it started on July 21st and ended on August 18th.
Oh, geez. So it is almost a year.
Yeah.
Wow, a year of my life and nothing to show for it.
Yeah. A year later, you heard it here. No wonder I don't remember anything. No, but it'd be good to have some more isolated people. I think we'll be doing more frequent isolated seasons and Stranded, now that we're back in the groove after the derailing of ISO 3 and Morocco shambles. I think we'll be getting some more people and giving more people their second chances that they're looking for and everything else.
Yeah. Some new blood. These Curl people can't be the only new blood.
No, 100%, please.
Yeah.
No.
But that being said, I think, you guys definitely got shafted in the lurking department, but like ISO 3 was awesome to lurk.
We were very much the interim season.
Yeah. But for sure, like, you guys are going to enjoy lurking ISO 5, which hopefully the cast is looking pretty good from the applicants we've got. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to close it out.
Right.
I enjoyed ISO 4 and I enjoyed talking about it with you guys. So thank you for finally coming together and talking about it with me.
Glad we finally did it.
Yeah.
I can finally get my PTSD over with.
Yeah.
Just in time for another round. All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.